Hi guys, this is the answer key for 1.4, measuring progress and finding fractional parts. So what we're about to go over is for this section in the book. It's on page 20, so I'm going to give a quick intro about what measuring fractional parts is about. So I'm just going to read down here at the bottom where it says, when you use fractions to compare a part to a whole, you often have more than one fraction named for the same quantity. For example, in problem 1.3, we found out that 1/5 equals 2/10. So when we have one fraction named for the same size piece, we call that equivalent. So when something has the same name but a different for the same quantity but a different fraction, it's called equivalent. So 1/5 of a whole and 2/10 of a whole are really talking about the same size piece. They're both equivalent fractions. In this next problem, you'll compare the fundraising goal of a grade, the fundraising progress of a grade to its goal using fractions. The thermometers on the next page show the progress of 6th grade poster sales after 2 days, 4 days, 6 days, 8 days, and 10 days. The principal needs to know what fraction of the goal the 6th grade has achieved after each day. So we're looking for what fraction of the goal the 6th graders have achieved. So we're going to take those fraction strips that we cut out the other day and see if we can use them to help us measure progress for the 6th graders. So on the next page, it shows the fraction strips and it shows the thermometers and the goals. I can't get it all on one screen, but you're going to have to just check your paper and get the idea. So the way that the thermometers are shaded in, they're shaded in on day 2, day 4, day 6, day 8.
Karen Malty, if you're in the building, please report to the main office. Karen Malty, please report to the main office.
Sorry about that. And there's also progress for day 10. Day 10 was the last day of the fundraiser. So it looks like even after 10 days, they didn't quite meet their goal, but they got pretty close. So we're going to be looking at these shaded bars and trying to label them with a fraction. So we're going to move on to the activity sheet that goes with this paper. So this is 1.4, measuring progress, and these are the fraction strips on the back that we were talking about. So again, it's day 2, day 4, day 6, day 8, and day 10. I'm just going to run through some of the answers that I thought were right, and as I worked through this activity. So the first question asks, how can you tell whether the 6th graders raised the same amount each day, and explain? Well, when I looked at the fraction bars, I noticed that the fraction bars didn't increase by the same amount each day. For example, there was a little bit of increase between day 2 and day 4, but there was a big jump between day 4 and day 8. So I'm going to say that they didn't sell the same amount each day because this was a little bit of increase versus this being a lot of increase. So the answer that I said, no they didn't. The bars did not increase by the same amount each day. So the next question says, what fraction of their goal did they reach after day 2, day 4, day 6, day 8, and day 10? So I used my fraction strips to measure those goals on the back side of my paper. So I got my fraction strips out and I started to measure. So I remembered somewhere for something else, other activity that we did, that on day 1, on day 2, those 6th graders raised $75. So I just wanted to check with my fraction strip. So I lined it up and measured with my 4ths fraction strip. This is so hard to see so I measured with my 4ths fraction strip and I saw that the bar was shaded about 1/4 of the way full. So I marked that off and said that was 1/4. So on day 4, it looked like they raised a little bit more. So I'm looking for a piece. I looked for a piece that was bigger than 1/4. So out of my choices, I could choose 1/2 or I could choose 1/3. It didn't look to me like it was 1/2 of the way full, so I chose my third strip and measured in thirds. And lo and behold, my third strip measured up perfectly. So on day 4, they had raised 1/3 of their goal. Day 6 got a little bit harder. Day 6 was kind of tricky. I ended up using ninths to measure day 6. See if I can find my ninth strip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's not it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, here it is. This is my ninth strip. And I used my ninth strip to measure this goal, and looks like they earned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ninths of their goal on day 6. So I had 11/20ths, but I switched it to 5 ninths. And on day 8, I measured with my 12ths strip. And to me, it looked like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 twelfths. They were 9 twelfths of the way to their goal on day 6. So I marked that with 9 twelfths. And on the last day, I also measured with twelfths. It worked out that they earned 10 twelfths of their goal on the last day. 10 out of 12 of those boxes were filled. So I marked it with 10 twelfths. So that was how I started out, by labeling all of my pieces with fractions. My first one was 1/4, then 1/3, then 5 ninths, then 9 twelfths, and then in the last day they earned 10 twelfths of their goal. And I measured that all with my fraction strips. Then it says Mary used her 4th strip to measure and label fractions and dollar amounts on day 2. The thermometer on the right. Did she write the correct dollar amount? How do you know? So Mary took her day 2 thermometer and she decided that 1/4 was equivalent, or was the same as $75 in cash. So they're comparing, taking that goal of 300 and saying, what can I count by in 4 equal jumps that will get me up to 300? So it works out that 75 plus 75 plus 75 plus 75 will get me to my goal of 300. Or you can think about it like 75 4 times makes 300. Or you can think about it like my goal of 300 divided into 4 equal parts gives me $75 each. So there's lots of ways to think about it. You can think about it like adding 75 4 times. You can think about it like multiplying. Or you can reverse that process and take your goal and break it up into equal parts to make 75. Part 2 says to use your fraction strips to measure and label the fraction and dollar amount on the remaining thermometers. So on the remaining thermometers, we have to now put not just the fraction, but also the money that it represents. So I'm going to use Mary's idea for number 1 and say that on the first day, they earned 1/4 of the goal, which was $75. And again, we did that by taking 300 and dividing it into 4 equal parts. 300 divided by 4 gets me 75. On day 2, I said they raised 1/3 of their goal. So I took my goal of 300 and I broke it into 3 equal parts, and I said that each piece was 100. So if I broke this goal into 3 equal pieces, it would be 100, 200, 300 to reach my goal. Day 6, I'm not really sure if this is the right answer, but this is how I thought about it. I measured out using ninths, but when I divided my 300 by 9, didn't give me a pretty number. It told me that 300 divided by 9 was $33.33. So that 1/9 of my goal was $33.33. So it's not a pretty number, but I worked my way up and added $33.33 each time until I got to my goal, or till I got to my fraction of 5/9. And I said that this was $166.65. I did that by adding $33.33 each time all the way up. The problem that makes me feel kind of weird about this is that when I get to the tippy top, I don't reach $300 exactly. If I take 266.64 and I add $33.33, I get $299.88. $299.88. That's not $300, but it's pretty close. It's as close as I could get. So I know that this is not perfect, but it's the best I could do. I couldn't make it perfect. So I kind of used some estimation on day 6. Day 8 worked out fine. I knew that 9/12 was equivalent to 3/4, so I used my day 2 bar and said that 3/4 was $225. I counted up by $75 each time. And my day 10 bar worked out with 12ths. When I took $300 and divided it by 12, I knew that for each segment I was counting by 25, because 300 divided by 12 is 25, and I can count in jumps of 25 all the way up to 300. I know that 10/12 of my goal actually was $250. All right, so that was 2. Jerry says that she can express 6th grade progress in 2 ways using equivalent fractions. She said that 1/4 or 2/8 would work. And then it said to find some other days for which you can write equivalent fractions. So I did that on the back too. I knew that 1/3 and 2/6 were equivalent, and I can show that on my fraction strip right here. I first measured with 1/3, but I can also measure it with 2/6. I can see that that is still the same size piece, just represented with a different fraction. And I also did, I told you that I did the 9/12 and 3/4, which is over here. You can see that 9/12 and 3/4 are also equivalent. And I also did it with 10/12. 10/12 and 5/6 are also equivalent. So if I measure with my 6th strip, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/6, 5/6 is equivalent to 10/12.